Tappei has just released Arc 8 Chapter 11, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. The chapter begins with Rem calling out to Abel, asking if he's going to meet that man. Abel hadn't spoken to the girl in a long time, and asked if the people from the kingdom have fulfilled their duty yet. Rem says that they came not for her, but for Subaru. Vincent, however, cuts her off and tells her to not waste his time with this nonsense. Rem repeats the question, asking if Vincent is going to see Subaru, and Abel states that he is called Vincent, not Abel. Vincent heard that Subaru was awake, and therefore he must confront him. Rem states that Subaru is not an enemy, and Vincent furrowed his brows. He had expected her to remain silent, and stated that there won't be a third chance. Despite that, Rem repeated that Subaru is not an enemy. Vincent then asked her for her name, and she said it was Rem. Vincent proceeds onwards, but states the next time Rem wastes his time, he will cut off her head. How eloquently you speak, Natsuki Subaru, the stargazer of the Dragon Kingdom. Subaru looks at the man. The encounters between Subaru and Vincent were inexplicable. He first met Abel as the bandaged man, who he was then given a knife to. He then was trapped alongside Vincent in a cage. The events continued, and they were always separated and then reunited. And now Vincent Valakia was taking charge. Subaru asks Vincent to peel a fruit for him. However, Vincent says that he cannot do that, and then asks where the fruit is. Subaru says that it's in the fruit basket, and it has red skin. Vincent states that the fruit in question has white flesh. Subaru says that he feels like he had this conversation before, which by the way he did. This was with Priscilla when Subaru had the apples, and Priscilla said, "What are those?" Subaru said, "They're apples." She said, "Aren't apples white?" And then Subaru says, well, "Yeah, when you peel them, they're white." So this is pretty much the exact same thing. Subaru then utters that there's things that Vincent doesn't know. Vincent picked up the fruit knife and cleaved it in half. Vincent then puts down the cut fruit back in the basket, seeing that the inside of it has white flesh. And then he looked back at Subaru. Vincent had eyes filled with hostility. Subaru asked if he made Vincent embarrassed. After all, Vincent called him a weird name, to which Vincent said, "Stargazer of the Dragon Kingdom." Subaru knows that stargazers are similar to the Dragon Tablet of Lagunica. Subaru jokes that it makes him seem like a peeping Tom. However, Vincent has no reaction. If it was in the modern world, then Subaru would fight against being called a peeping Tom, because that's like being defamed, because being a peeping Tom essentially means that you're a degenerate. Vincent asks Subaru how much he knows, but he states not much. After all, not many people have told Subaru about what's going on. We see that Emilia told Subaru that they're retreating from the imperial capital. We see that Subaru and the rest of the group are in dragon carriages, and Subaru states that he heard Vincent was betrayed by his second in command. Vincent gets closer to Subaru and points his knife at Subaru's throat. By the way, that's the fruit knife. Subaru asks what the hell Vincent is doing. Subaru knows that if he screams, Vincent will slash his throat, so he doesn't scream for help. Vincent then asks Subaru how much he knows, and whether or not everything was a part of the picture he painted. Subaru says he doesn't know, and Subaru then calls out to Abel, and Abel says Vincent. Vincent then states that he's the Emperor of Valakia. Subaru states that Vincent got his crown back, and Vincent says that his duties are complete. He teamed up with the Shadrakians and reclaimed the crown. Now there's a great disaster. Vincent says that with the death of Vincent Valakia, that would cause the great disaster to occur. Subaru then asks, why does it seem like Vincent planned to die? And Vincent states that his death was a part of the plan, yet he had countermeasures in place for the great disaster. Subaru gets angry, asking if Vincent is kidding him. Considering Subaru went through all of those hardships and hurdles, and right at the end Vincent Valakia wanted to die and kick the bucket, Subaru asks why Vincent has to die, and Vincent starts getting agitated, stating that that is the policy. He has to die first, or else the great disaster doesn't happen. However, Subaru disagrees, saying that isn't the case. Vincent, however, says that it was the stargazers that told him it could not be overruled and he had to die. Vincent was speaking with emotion. His hand was gripping the knife tightly, so tight that his palm was bleeding. Subaru and Vincent stared at each other's eyes. Vincent explains that the stargazers see the future and prophesies a great disaster that cannot be averted, which only occurs when Vincent Valakia dies. Subaru listens. He thinks about this idea. For example, if Subaru returns by death, he can save people from a cataclysm, but he cannot stop the cataclysm itself. So for example, like when Elsa and Emilia attack the mansion, like that's the cataclysm. They're always going to attack the mansion. But what Subaru can do is make it so that people don't die from when they attack the mansion. Anyways, Vincent states that everything is to mitigate the damage to the Empire, before asking if Subaru, the Stargazer, is playing with him. Subaru denies being a Stargazer, and Vincent tells him to stop messing around. Subaru sees that the mask of Vincent Valakia, the Emperor, has crumbled. Instead, he's looking at the flawed man known as Abel. Subaru understands. Vincent believes Subaru is a Stargazer since Subaru has returned by death, and Vincent picked up on Subaru's strange mannerisms. Of course, Subaru has inexperience, but his judgment always got through deadly situations with no harm. So Vincent trusted Subaru's judgment, thinking he was a stargazer who saw the future. Everything Subaru did, if you looked at it through the lens of a stargazer, it would make sense why Vincent agreed, such as cross-dressing in Guaral or meeting with Yona. Vincent looks at Subaru and says, "You left me," and then calls Subaru a mediocre human being. Vincent analyzes Subaru's character, calling him a bitter young man with no abilities, no strengths, no evilness, no hostility. Yet despite that, he wasn't ordinary. He lived through lots of situations. Vincent calls Subaru mediocre again, before asking why Subaru saved him. Subaru held no evil or viciousness towards people. He didn't get along with Vincent, yet he came back and saved Vincent. Subaru had no loyalty to Valakia, but he worked so hard. Subaru, however, hearing this question, states that he doesn't know why he did it. Subaru notices that Vincent's hand is bleeding immensely, and Subaru tries to stop the bleeding, but Vincent shakes his hand off and tells him to not touch him. This shake actually cuts Subaru's hand with the knife. Now both of them had hands which were bleeding onto the white sheets below. Vincent states that Subaru doesn't use logic to decide his actions. He moves based on emotion, stating that Subaru's decisions can be erratic and he cannot decide between what should be saved and what shouldn't be saved. Subaru froze upon hearing this. A voice echoed in his head. "But you're willing to choose to save Katya or not?" It was a voice of Todd from their fight. Todd did not call Subaru a stargazer, nor did he see through Return by Death. But he saw the contradictions in Subaru's behaviors, times when he's willing to die and times where he will resist. Todd and Vincent overlap in front of him. For Subaru, who can decide who lives and dies, how can anyone choose to have Subaru as a friend? It was a truth that Subaru chose who would live and who would die. With the power of return by death, Subaru had made those he cared about survive. Subaru had saved many people. However, there are times where people died and Subaru just chose to move on. Subaru had saved some enemies, however some enemies he decided not to save. Vincent states that it's not only love that decides who Subaru saves, before stating that Subaru saves those people he dislikes. Of course, Subaru reached out for Todd. He also reached out to Lewis. Vincent then tells Subaru to take his people and leave Wallachia. Abel puts the knife back down into the fruit basket and states he will focus on the great disaster, and that the board isn't what he had in mind, but it was possible. The name Chisha refers to someone who died during the rebellion. Vincent was asking Subaru why Chisha was allowed to die and why he was saved. Vincent, however, continues by saying that he will make preparations for Subaru and his allies to leave Wallachia. Todd's voice echoed in Subaru's head. "You're more of a monster than those zombies." Vincent turned his back and Subaru called out to Abel, and Vincent Wallachia said his name was Vincent. Subaru then said to grit your teeth. With that, Subaru bounced on the bed and flew across the room and punched Vincent Wallachia on the side of the face, and with that, the chapter ends. So, quite an interesting chapter. Vincent was extremely emotional in this chapter. This is the biggest time we've seen Vincent with emotions. Not only that, it looks like Vincent and Todd are both saying the same thing. This idea that Subaru just chooses who lives and dies. So I'm looking forward to see where it goes from here.